Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. This time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. Sometimes when I'm reasoning about us, I know you got me, it's so effortless. Back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. No, this time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the FPV News with JB and ItsBlunty. How you doing, Blunty?
Good, Joshua. How's it going today?
Very well, very well. I'm doing very well. I'm going to check your volume so people don't complain about not being able to hear you.
Testing. 1, 2.
I don't know.
Testing.
Seems.
Can you hear me?
seems okay.
This is a news story.
We could have done that
before.
before we during our prep, but I just thought I'd wait until the very beginning of the stream because that's the best use of everyone's time. I know, I just didn't think. Welcome to the stream, everybody. The stream where Blunty and I take you through the most important news in the FPV world, all in one place, just in 1 hour roundup of anything that we don't mention isn't even worth thinking about, probably.
Yes.
Seem right?
Yeah, that's accurate. That sounds right.
Oh, 661 FPV. We are going to be talking about Mr. Steele and his very interesting claim that TBS Tracer has lower latency on 25 milliwatts than on 1000 milliwatts. That, in fact, is going to be our very last segment, which we normally reserve for like a little more off the cuff, or sometimes we even say ranty stuff. So you could start to guess which direction we're going to go with that. But in the meantime, we've got a lot of other sort of serious news to talk about. Blunty, what have we got on the schedule for today?
All right. So first up, we're going to talk about RDQ. Race Day Quads has finally filed the actual paperwork for the FAA lawsuit. Now they've put in process everything. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
That's pretty big news, I think.
They're actual legal arguments, which they've been, I've interviewed them many times, and each time I was like, so what are your legal arguments going to be? And they were like, we can't tell you. We can't tip our hand. Finally, we actually know what their argument is.
Yeah. Runcam, this is pretty crazy news too. Runcam joins Caddx as an official manufacturing partner of the DJI FPV system. That is pretty crazy news. So we'll dig into that too.
Yeah, Runcam. Hey, we made a DJI compatible camera, Caddx. You can't do that. We're not allowed. DJI. Well, actually, Caddx has got to be kind of annoyed.
Yeah, I would imagine. HDZero, the camera delays release. So that's the Sharkbite camera is delaying their release, extending their beta program, and giving away some free cameras to folks. I think those have all been taken already, but we'll talk about that and explain that situation. And in other news with that, so HDZero chipset is now going to be available for any third-party use, as long as you apply and get them to sell it to you.
Nice.
And also, HDZero is confirmed to be behind the Frsky X20HD we talked about previously, and we both immediately assumed would be Sharkbite.
Wait, no, didn't someone say that it was going to be DJI? I swear I remember someone saying it was going to be DJI in the Frsky X20HD, and I was like, that doesn't seem right. Oh, anyway, who can remember what happened?
Yeah,
certainly not going to. Certainly not
long
me.
ago.
Let's move on.
We'll get to that later.
Let's not. Okay. Anyway.
ReelSteady Go is for the Runcam 5 Orange. Well, no, but we do have a new support for Gyroflow directly from Runcam 5 from Runcam themselves. So we'll talk about them.
This is really exciting to be able to get ReelSteady like stabilization out of cheap third-party cameras. So this is really exciting news.
Fettec Mini AIO is now being made by Holybro. It seems like there's at least a version of it now being made by Holybro. So we'll take a quick look at that and talk about some of the other things in the past similar.
Okay.
We've got a neat project, a neat thing this guy made who basically says not to make it yourself with a Magnus Effect Copter. So we'll talk about what the Magnus Effect is if you don't know. We'll take a look at that.
Okay. Little weirdo quadcopter. We're always down for those.
Yeah. The opener is a new VTOL drone-style human flight platform that we'll take a look at that they're already ready to sell to you. So,
wow, not just a prototype.
Yeah. Drones are filmed a world record Highline attempt, and they tested some Slackline strength on a channel that I watch personally. How not to Highline. So we'll take a look at that.
I should have known you were into slacklining. You seem like the type.
At least enough to watch videos and brake tests and stuff. So.
Do you slackline yourself? Tell the truth.
I have a couple times, but like it's not like I don't like go to the park and set up the slackline all the time.
That is the best way to meet ladies. By the way, ladies love a guy who can walk on a slackline. Some of them do.
Depends on
Who's more popular with the ladies, drone pilots or slackliners? What do you think?
Slackliners, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, unless you're like on a movie set or something.
Oh yeah, I mean obviously Johnny FPV, very very popular. Okay, moving on.
Community spotlight for this week. Busheezy from the Discord makes a DJI SRT viewer in the browser, which I think is pretty fancy. So we'll take a quick look at that. Pretty neat little tool.
All right.
ZTAG, which we've talked about quite a few times now. We talked a little bit last week. I teased that they're developing a different part of that system. They're working with VAS and FPV Combat. And they're kind of doing a group thing we talked about last week. So part of a big part of their component is like a live video system, and we'll take a quick look at that.
Yeah, this is a big deal because one of the main things that stops people from racing with DJI, Johnny 5 is in the chat, he'll definitely have an opinion about this, is not its performance, but the ability to spectate the channels and DVR the channels and officiate. And ZTAG is developing a system basically that can do this. So I'm really excited that they're trying to solve that problem.
Yeah. And last but not least, we'll do a little bit of a ranty sort of section. Mr. Steele says that Tracer is faster at lower powers than on ludicrous mode. So we're going to take a look at those claims and some testing that we got and talk a little bit about that.
Man, don't be coy. What have you got to lose? Name names. Who are you talking about? Before we get into the news, let's just say thank you to you guys for showing up here. You can see right here, this is my main screen. I am monitoring your chat, and I will also be monitoring your super chats. If you want to get a super chat in, this is not a Q&A stream, so it won't be quite as interactive, but definitely feel free. Thank you, Jack Russell FPV, for the $2 super chat. Just an excuse to ask a question about the Rotor Risco. And as long as people are leaving super chats, I don't mind. Even though the Rotor Risco is just a giant trolley joke, as far as I can tell. And also, just take a second here to say thank you to these beautiful people over on the Discord. These are my patrons over. You can get onto this Discord server by joining my Patreon, link in the video description. And they're beautiful, wonderful people, not just because they support me, but also because of the way they support each other with all the help that they give each other. And Blunty, you're there as well. You're one of them, by the way. So thank you to them. People are saying they're getting lag on the stream. I'm not seeing any problems on my end, so we're going to continue ahead. I don't see any indication of a problem with the stream, so I'm going to guess it's your problem. It's the Rotor Risco. Okay, Blunty, let's go back to the beginning. ReelSteady Quads has filed their actual arguments with the FAA. This is big, and the document itself is like 30,000 words. It's like 40 pages. You can download the document. Where is it? Our argument against remote ID. So we've got a link in the show notes, in the video description. Hang on one second. This don't need to see that. You can go download the full argument and read the things they've said. Oh, don't have to log in. There we go. So this is the actual court filing. And Blunty, we're not going to go through the whole thing, but I just like to, I mean, you've looked at it. I'd like to get your thoughts, or, what do we need to say about this?
I think in general, this is a lot of stuff that we've been saying. I think this is a lot of stuff that, like, basically we kind of expected to happen. Basically from them, and now we're kind of seeing that stuff come out. And now I think really what we were going to do here is we kind of got to wait on and see what the FAA says to this. Like, what's the response going to be, right? Because I think a lot of this is basically like, like I said, but what we're trying to do, like the goals we're trying to achieve. And now it's a question of like what the FAA's response will be. Will they care about any of this? Will they care about some of this? All those kind of things. And then we'll go from there. I would expect we're going to get a response that's like, hey, these are some valid concerns, but X, Y, and Z is why we can't do any of that, and we're going to keep going.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite things about lawyers, there have been, thankfully, rare times in my life where I've had to hire a lawyer, but in the times where I have, it has been very gratifying to have the lawyer make arguments that, like, on some level, like, one of the arguments they're making is that this violates the Fourth Amendment. And you're like, whoa, that is a bold argument. Like, but then a lawyer is like, no, here's why it does. And you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I like you, Mr. Lawyer. Like, the lawyer takes your case and makes it sound super plausible. And for now, the FAA hasn't replied. And it is just super gratifying to read this document and hear someone stick up for us in a way that, like, in some sense, nobody has.
One of the quotes from here I could just give you is, in summary, remote ID stands for intrusive tracking of everyone, everywhere, all the time, with extremely low costs and ease of accessibility for law enforcement without judicial safeguards. FAA cannot simply circumvent the Fourth Amendment expectation of privacy by regulatory requirement in lieu of a warrant.
Yeah. So I would encourage everybody, even if you're not like a lawyer, even if you're not into this stuff, I would encourage you to download this document and just skim through it. It is just, it almost gives you chills up your spine to hear somebody finally sticking up for FPV in the way that we feel like they should. And we know that the FAA is going to come back and go, no, you're stupid, and disagree with all of this. And at the end of the day, a judge will make a decision. Probably a judge, not a jury. And who knows what we will or won't get. But until now, ReelSteady Quads has been saying, we're going to sue the FAA. And some people have been like, well, how's that going? Because kind of nothing has happened. And this document to me really, like, it's like if nothing else comes of it, the fact that someone actually said it, it feels good to me. It feels good to me.
Yeah, Tyler kind of says it like, well, I don't want to misquote you. Let me make sure I read it correctly. But he basically says, oh yeah, from a cost perspective, we're about halfway there. Our reply and the verbal arguments in court will comprise the other half. We're still pushing hard to meet our goal of $100,000, which we expect to cover half the cost of the case. Right now, they're about $67,000, which is pretty crazy that, honestly, that they've raised that much just through the GoFundMe donations. That's really awesome to see. And the other thing he mentions is that he says he's been told that people in the FAA are looking at that GoFundMe, looking at our input on it, looking at like all the money they're raising and the stuff they're pushing out, and judging their response and how hard they're going to push based on that. You know, if they think they can squash it, I think they're going to try to squash it, and if they can't, they can't. You know.
Yeah. So this GoFundMe, and if you're looking at this and going, "Wow, he's raised $67,000," I mean, if you have any idea how expensive it is to file and fight a federal case, this is just the beginning. I mean, how many hours of legal work went into writing this 30-ish page, 30,000 word, if I remember right. When this is thousands and thousands of dollars of lawyers' time. Go ahead.
He said 3 paid lawyers and 4 volunteer lawyers worked for nearly a year and a half to produce this.
Yeah. So that GoFundMe is just the beginning of what Race Day Quads has committed to spend. If you can donate, I'm sure I've donated. I must have donated. I should go look. Yeah, that's me. That anonymous donation right there, that's me. That's probably me right there. No, I don't know. If you can donate and you haven't donated, please do. Not just because you're supporting Race Day Quads in fighting this fight, but because apparently the FAA is paying attention to how much support Race Day Quads is getting and gauging how much of a fight they have on their hands. And so
I'll just say as well, like, this is like if you were on the fence before, or you weren't sure what they were going to do or how they were going to push or what the results were going to be or where they were going to spend your money, now you have a document you can read and decide if you think that it was the right way, you know, if it's the right place to put it.
Speaking of reading the document, Durzo FPV asks, wait, if you can download this doc, wouldn't this give the defendant insight to fight back harder? They've filed, this is an argument filed in federal court.
Yes.
They didn't release this document until they filed it. They haven't released it until now because they didn't want to give the FAA more time to prepare their response. But once it's filed in federal court, it's a matter of public record and anyone can read it, including the person you're opposing in the lawsuit. So, yeah. This is very exciting. So, Blunty, I think I would like, Tyler has asked if he and Jonathan can do an interview with me about the suit, you know, an update, and I'd like to just sit down and go through it with you and see what we think, just to get a sort of a dumb guy's response. So we're going to go a little deeper into it, but for now, just the news is that it's here. You can download it, link down in the show notes, and thank you to Race Day Quads. I mean, other people are fighting this fight in different ways. Race Day Quads is the one who has decided to actually take them to court, and that is certainly commendable. So, all right. Next up, Blunty, what do we got?
All right. Big news. Runcam is apparently going to be joining Caddx as an official manufacturing partner of the DJI FPV digital system. So previously we've had Caddx making basically all of our hardware now because DJI stopped making the air units and pushed that to Caddx. And we covered previously that there was the encryption scare, and then Caddx was like, no, we're not doing that, don't worry. And it seemed like DJI was upset. And now we see that Runcam, it looks like vendors are being told, and Oscar Liang is reporting, which is a very good source typically, that basically Runcam will be a partner and will be, it seems like similar to Caddx in this. They'll be releasing Vistas and possibly air units with the Runcam branding. He mentions also the Nebula Pro. That's a Caddx branded camera, like it's from Caddx currently, but it's very possible that DJI makes that in-house somehow, just like they obviously probably make the Vista. So.
Yeah, that one, I've always assumed that Caddx has made those cameras. I've always assumed that Caddx has not made the actual air unit and the Vista, just because the quality of the PCB is so much higher than anything I've ever seen Caddx make. I feel like DJI does that engineering. But the cameras, we know Caddx knows how to make cameras, and Caddx can make good cameras. So I've assumed that Caddx made those cameras. But if DJI is saying that, I don't know if that means literally the Nebula Nano, like the same camera under a different name, will be coming from Runcam, or if Runcam will just be doing their own version of it. But it's very exciting that there will be more than one manufacturer of cameras for the DJI compatible stuff, because this is an argument that's been leveled against DJI that they're sort of closed and restrictive. And when Caddx said we're going to lock out the MIPI, and people were like, see, this is what you get with a closed ecosystem. That's shitty.
Yeah.
And I feel like we need to give DJI credit for not doing that. If you were going to condemn them for being proprietary and closed, you need to give them some modicum of credit for saying, well, okay, we're going to go the other direction.
Yeah, it feels like we're sort of in like the alternate. We went to the good timeline. Like right. like 3 months ago, we were headed down this timeline of like, hey, only Caddx is making stuff, and it might not be forever, and there's going to be new versions of the hardware that'll lock people out, and all the other cameras won't work, and hey, we can't even source good cameras, and like this whole other thing. And now suddenly we're living in this whole other world where now Runcam is also going to be making everything. Everything's going to be compatible. We're going to be seeing new hardware that won't lock things out, and it's just changing for chip shortage so we can get more stuff. I don't know. This seems super positive. Also, like we reported previously, the demo hardware, like the tester hardware or software rather, that I saw in the stuff finally has release notes. Like that, This is all signs of like DJI doing stuff behind the scenes and actually caring about the system that 3 months ago we were like, oh, they don't care at all.
Well, when the DJI FPV drone came out, people thought, well, is this it for the FPV system? Was the FPV system just a test bed for the FPV drone? And now that the drone is here, DJI has done this with other products. They've just said, you know what, we're done with that. We're not spending any more energy on that. And we worried, is that going to happen to the FPV system? And it certainly seems like it isn't. This is not the kind of move that DJI would make if they were just going to abandon this and it was going to stop existing.
Yeah, I mean, historically they've abandoned like all this stuff, and it seems the opposite now. They seem to care. So,
but can we get some freaking 120 FPS cameras ever again in the world?
Yes. Hopefully, the rumor that's like been on the grapevine has still been the end of September.
Wait, I heard end of August. When did you hear end of September?
Like for the last month, I thought I heard end of September, not August. So I
knew this was going to happen.
Yeah,
I heard end of August, and I was like, well, maybe they're going to push it back. So. Maybe
I'm wrong, but either way, this article says around September 2021 would be the earliest this Runcam hardware comes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it remains to be seen. Maybe a couple more weeks or a couple more months rather of drought, and then back to good cameras hopefully.
Yeah, Nebula Nano Pro was a good camera.
Yeah,
not as good as the Vista, but
yeah, Nebula Pro is a good camera. We got two sources though. Hopefully, that maybe one of them can get us a good camera. So.
Maybe I hope so. That would be great. It's a good time to be thinking about digital HD because with HDZero sort of driving the development of the SharkBite system, separate from Fat Shark, and trying to get more hardware out and more cameras out. Then, of course, HDZero, the SharkBite system, doesn't require a 120 FPS sensor in order to get low latency, which I hadn't thought about that. You know, the DJI system is inherently higher latency because of various things. And so in order to get really good latency, they have to double the frame rate, and that makes the sensors more expensive and harder to get. SharkBite can give you its latency with a 60 FPS sensor, and these days that means you can buy a SharkBite camera and you can't buy a 120 FPS DJI camera. Or can you buy a SharkBite camera, Blunty?
Well,
because
we reported previously on the HDZero camera for SharkBite, and now it looks like that camera is going to be delayed. However, it is for good reasons. As good a reasons as you can. They're being completely transparent. Carl from Divimath, the people making the HDZero camera for the SharkBite system, has put out a statement that basically says, hey man, we ran into some issues. Like 5% of these cameras have issues. The other 95% don't. And we don't feel comfortable selling them to people like that or releasing them like that. So they asked people to reach out and say like, hey, if you have a bunch of VTXs or you were an early adopter of Bifrost, or if you've modified your Nano HD with the M12, stuff that seems like you're kind of like into it. They shipped you a camera for $8 for 2 to 3 weeks, or $30 for expedited, just the shipping fee that you'll pay, so you can test this camera and help them out, try to figure this stuff out. They sent out 100 units. It looks like those are already all gone. Johnny Five in chat earlier said he wasn't able to get one. I think Carl posted that they were all gone. So
yeah, and this is a real the term I would use is a real mensch move, if you have that word in your vocabulary. It's a good guy move they came back. They had a 5% failure rate. It would be completely unethical to release a product with a 5% failure rate, and yet in the FPV community, I feel like that would not be as unusual as you would hope. And instead of going ahead and releasing it and saying, screw it, we'll just replace the 5% that fail, they were like, forget it. And they literally gave away the whole batch, only a batch of 100. Unfortunately, it does mean that there is a longer delay until we get this Runcam camera, which a lot of people were hoping as kind of like, because right now the SharkBite camera is pretty crappy.
Yeah, it sounds like we're talking about like a month if they're like letting some people get 2 to 3 weeks shipping on this. I would expect to see like it's going to take those people a couple weeks to get it, and then another week or two to test and stuff. So,
are those 100 cameras sorry, I may have misunderstood. Are the 100 cameras they're giving out testers for the new batch, or are they the leftover cameras from the old batch?
My understanding is they're like sending out 100 to see if they're okay, right? They're like, hey, I don't know. I think they're actual tester cameras. Maybe I misunderstood.
Oh, well, let's go back and check, because we, as the FPV News, we have a journalistic obligation to get this right. The way I read it is that they are offering the bad cameras to beta testers free of charge, so that you can give us feedback to apply to the next camera revision, which should be designed defect free. So
this is what I mean, though. Like, they're going to get the cameras that they have, and then in 2 to 3 weeks, like they're going to get it, and then another week they're going to provide feedback, and then that's going to go into a revision. So that means a month from now the revision will happen, and then they'll be made. So like we're at least a month out.
We're on the same page then. Yeah, so we're not a month away from seeing the new camera. We are at least a month away from them pulling the trigger on the new camera. We are, say, 2 to 3 months away. So this Runcam HDZero camera that is supposed to kind of be, in some ways, like upgrade SharkBite to, oh, that's pretty good, is at least 2 or 3 months out, realistically.
Yeah. I've had a couple questions in chat, and I get this a lot. So I want to do a quick, like, who was Divimath? If we can do that real quick for people.
Yeah, for sure.
So basically, Divimath made the HDZero system. HDZero was an analog HD system that took an analog HD camera in and then ran that over the air, just like the systems that we're used to now, and then spit it back out the other side as digital. And that was made by Divimath. Carl at Divimath, who we talk about a lot, is over at Divimath, and he's like running that front. HDZero teamed up with Fat Shark to make Bifrost. Bifrost was an analog HD system similar to HDZero, just made for FPV. Then they got together and they're like, hey, we need digital only. So they made SharkBite. SharkBite is basically HDZero, but it's totally digital. So your camera is digital sensor going all the way through, and then obviously you're transmitting over the air, however you're modulating that, and then it's coming back to the other side as digital video. So that's why we have SharkBite now, is that's a Divimath HDZero HD camera version. So what we're seeing now is a pull away, sort of like we're seeing HDZero kind of branch off and go like, hey, we want to develop this tech. Fat Shark's not really pushing this thing. So we're just going to get out there and start doing stuff. So Carl's been working behind the scenes with a lot of people, testing stuff, sending stuff to like these cameras out, doing beta test programs, making statements, getting out there. And that kind of leads into our next story. So HDZero is actually, Divimath is actually providing that HDZero chipset to any manufacturer or any people who want to use it for like a product. And basically there's two statements here. One is that they're going to release a VTX VRX modular board that you can easily integrate. And those will hopefully, he says, next month, which would be in about 10 days from now. I'm not sure if those are still on track, but that would be kind of a way for anybody to develop and build onto the system. And then also, he just wants to let people know. Everybody says SharkBite is locked, DiviMath is locked, that sort of thing. So basically, he says, like, if you look at analog, there's a thing called rich wave, and analog transmitters, video transmitters, use chips from rich wave. So in that way, DiviMath wants to be the rich wave of digital. And so they're selling their chipset, the DM5680 and the DM6300, to any manufacturer who wants to use it in their system, similar to how Richwave does for analog. So if you want to integrate it, you can do that.
Yeah, and Carl makes a little bit of a snarky point, which I think he has every right to make, is that if you're going to accuse DiviMath of being proprietary because they have custom ASICs, well, DiviMath is giving their custom ASICs out to basically anybody. Will the other company, will DJI do the same? No, DJI doesn't give their custom ASICs to anybody. And so no one can make a DJI video transmitter except DJI. The fact that we've got cameras being distributed or maybe manufactured by Caddx and Runcam is a completely separate thing. That's not where the secret sauce is with DJI and DiviMath. So going to Demenis's question in the chat, are there any other goggles besides the DJI ones that work with the DJI system? No. Only DJI goggles can work with DJI video transmitter, Vista, and Air Unit. There is no third party. However, there is a SharkBite HDZero, SharkBite by Fat Shark, right? And in theory, there could be some other company that, just like right now, we have a TBS Unify and a Rush Racing and all these other VTX manufacturers. In the HDZero ecosystem, that could occur. In the DJI ecosystem, that, as of today, it doesn't seem likely.
Yeah. Also, that kind of leads in again to the next story, which is HDZero has confirmed to be behind the Frsky X20HD, which we reported on a while back. The X20 came out, and we had heard that, like, oh yeah, the X20HD is going to be some, there were reports of DJI, there were reports of other things. We said, like, we thought it was pretty obvious that it was going to be SharkBite from the description, HDZero, that same chipset, and we actually had MadsTech replying in the thread, and Carl responding that yes, it will be HDZero. So looks like we'll have another device that will be running on the same chipset.
That's the first official confirmation of that I've heard. When the X20HD was first announced, some people speculated that Frsky had made their own digital HD system, and you and I were both incredibly skeptical of that. Our best guess was that it was SharkBite, since we anticipated that HDZero would allow third parties to build receiver modules, and this is the first time that has officially been confirmed. So that's exciting. There's a lot of people in the chat who are wondering about the quality of SharkBite versus DJI, and I think that you could go down a list of the pros and cons of both. Differences in latency, difference, and so forth. But in terms of image quality, I don't think there's any question that DJI wins. And in terms of range, DJI wins. But I know that I've heard rumors, at least, that HDZero or DiviMath is working on a 1-watt video transmitter, which so far there's been a 500 milliwatt SharkBite video transmitter and a 200 milliwatt one. And I feel like a 1-watt would go a long way to close the gap. I mean, there's output power matters. So I'm looking forward to that if they can actually get it manufactured.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. I think anything else on this chipset is a positive for everything else on this chipset. So yeah, it'll be good to see.
Yeah, so keep it up, HDZero. SharkBite is it's good that it's there and it's going to have a place to fill. And I feel like for now, I feel like analog is still kind of viable compared to SharkBite, but I feel like SharkBite is real close to getting to a place where you would say, no, I wouldn't use analog anymore.
Yeah, I think as we see this kind of like flush out more in the next 6 to 12 months, and see other people start to adopt these and more products come out and the better quality transmitters, and we see where the headset we talked about ends up and stuff like that, I think those will all be important things. So.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, keep it up, Carl. Keep it up, DiviMath. Keep it up, Fat Shark. Everybody keep doing your thing, and we're looking forward to it.
I would just want to say the number one thing people want and the number one thing Carl is doing is communicate. Like Sharkbite has been doing like a 2-week update, but the level of things Carl's doing is like digging through comments and replying and letting people know how tech works. And like he was drawing diagrams on the Divimath group to show people like how things are working, and he explains tech if people are like saying it wrong or whatever. They're very open to like let people know like, hey, this is a good system. We just want to tell you how it works. Please buy it and build with it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I've said this. I've said that one of the things that annoys, who am I gonna bitch about right now? Flight One is usually the subject of this. Please don't make me get another email from Preston saying, hey, why are you sicking your army on me? Don't go troll them or anything. But it's been one of the things that annoys me about them, and KISS too, and not about Betaflight, is that Betaflight's open source. And so even though I'm not a programmer, I feel like I can be a part of the club. I can follow along and listen to the grown-ups talk over my head about all these things. And I enjoy that. And when it comes to the development, when you ask a question about closed source development, the answer is just like, shut up. And and what I'm getting at there is that even if Sharkbite is in some ways not as good a system as DJI, I will enjoy it a lot more and be more supportive of it if it's open, because I just enjoy being a part of the process and hearing about it and thinking about it. And you don't get that with a system like DJI. You just get the system, like it, hate it, whatever. That's it.
Yeah, you get 3 layers of obfuscation, and you're trying to talk to some rep that talks to some other rep and stuff. Yeah, it's totally different, and it's good to see. So. Yeah,
and like you get development, things like canvas mode. Sharkbite has it, DJI doesn't yet. Yes. They're listening. They're giving us stuff. They just need to get the range a little better and the durability a little better.
Yes,
they're so close. Anyway,
but yeah, hopefully those boards he talked about, hopefully the other people getting the chipset and stuff, like all those things will help get us some different ideas and models and layouts and things on this. So
yeah, all right. Well, speaking of hardware that may or may not be good quality and durable, KISS. Now, KISS hardware, I was going to say KISS hardware is well known for being top notch, because KISS and Fettec, I believe they're manufactured in Germany, and like they make a big deal out of, we're not just some Chinese manufacturing slapping it off the line. We're manufactured in Germany with the quality of the Germans. It's my bad German accent. I apologize, Germans. But and maybe that's true, or maybe that's not. Some people would be like, well, why do KISS ESCs blow up? I'm not going there. But now we've got
the Flyduino fireballs entered the chat.
Yeah, I'm not going there. But we've got a Holybro Fettec Mini AIO. So Holybro makes good stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, they are out of China. So some people would be like, oh, that's worse than Germany. Holybro, I can't think of a time when a third party has made a KISS or Fettec hardware. Can you, Blunty?
Yes, one other time. iFlight made it like 4 years ago, something like that.
Oh, I do remember that. The KISS V. They actually put
a link in there. There's an AIO link on Get FPV that, of course, is not in stock, but
well, I don't even know if they make it anymore. Do they?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, you know, they sent me one of these to review. I listened to this. They sent me one of these to review, and I was like, oh, interesting, a third-party KISS flight controller. I've never heard of that before. And then when it came time to review it, KISS V2 had already come out, and this thing only runs KISS V1. And I was like, why would I make a video about this? It's already out of date. Thanks for sending it. I never did anything with it. But I do remember that now that you mention it. So there you go.
Well, yeah, hopefully that Holybro Fettec Mini IO will fare better, but maybe they'll be in stock. You can buy some. You know, they'll be available. So cool to see that. Nice to see them branching out a little bit.
It's only a 15 amp AIO, so this would be not for like big 5-inch quads. This would be for little
this is
quads.
Basically, yeah, they have basically this is the same as another 15 amp AIO. They have, it does have graphic OSD.
That's true. KISS doesn't have an OSD on board. That was actually true of the iFlight one as well, wasn't it? It was the only KISS flight controller with an onboard OSD. So this one does as well?
Yes, there's a graphical SD, and the STM32 has it.
That's exciting.
Yeah. looks like a good option for you if you're looking for KISS. So
with
cool
a 15 amps. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's kind of cool. All right. What's next, Blunty?
All right. ReelSteady Go for the Runcam 5 Orange. No, but we do have Gyroflow, and that's a pretty big step. So basically, the Runcam 5 Orange, it turns out, has a gyro inside of it. Who knew? Runcam did, but they were able to share that with Elvin over at Gyroflow, and now the dev branch of Gyroflow, 030 dev, is supporting that gyro inside of the Runcam 5 Orange. So they're working together and stabilizing with that gyro. So he made a post on Facebook about it, and then I linked a recent test video because he did. They're actually working on some other bugs in the Runcam 5 Orange with some frame stabilization and double framing and stuff. Runcam seems gung-ho to work on it with them. So,
well, it's great. Cool. So we're going to take a look at this video, the stabilized video. This is exciting because Gyroflow is free, unlike ReelSteady Go. And it's pretty damn good. I mean, the stabilization is pretty damn good. To be able to get a result like this, oh yeah, look how good that was. Look how smooth that power loop looked on the right side versus the left side. To be able to get a result like this out of a freaking, what does the Runcam 5 Orange go for? It's less than $100, isn't it? Cheap
yeah, I think it's like
crap.
Yeah, like 80 to 100, depending on where you can get it.
Yeah, I mean, the image quality still is not at the level of like a GoPro, which is not surprising, but a lot of people run the Runcam 5 Orange as a cheap HD action cam, and they want to get that, Ladrib flow. You got to put that hyper smooth on it, and now they can.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think this is really cool. And again, just to see Runcam working with them on this and helping them get that gyro data out and all that stuff.
Yeah, worth pointing out that Gyroflow also works with GoPros and other cameras. So if you have a GoPro and you don't want to buy ReelSteady Go, you can give Gyroflow a try. It doesn't cost you anything.
And any other camera, you can do with black box logs. If you've got it basically mounted to your quad, you put in the black box log, and then it'll look at the gyro on the black box and use that as the gyro for stabilization on your camera. So
yeah, and that's to me the most exciting thing about the Gyroflow, because like the GoPro and now the Runcam and a few other cameras embed the gyro information in the video as metadata, which is fine, but lots of cameras don't do that. But you have a gyro on your flight controller, and if you can get a black box out of it, I mean, you could stabilize DJI DVR. You could stabilize analog DVR if you really wanted to, and that's pretty gosh darn exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, links to that down in the video description, the Gyroflow project and so forth. All right, cool. What's next, Blunty?
All right. On to the Magnus Effect Copter. So let's take a look at the Magnus Effect. So the Magnus Effect is basically...
What is the Magnus Effect? Oh, you're about to tell us.
You basically spin circular rotors, and those circular rotors cause... I'm not the right person for this, but the video off the dam there shows it, basically. I've seen it on other videos.
Yeah, you can...
Basically, because of the spin,
You can see it happening there in that Veritasium video with the basketball, where they spin the basketball, and the spin on the basketball causes the basketball to travel in a certain direction by creating a low pressure area on one side. The same principle behind why, a curveball curves or whatever. And they're just taking advantage of that to create lift.
Yeah, and so he was like, oh, well, let's do that in a drone. Why not, right? How hard could it be? This video is a documentation of that. I encourage you to go watch this on your own time. This is a really good video because it turns out it's pretty hard. You've got to really dial it in and understand the differences and just do a lot of testing and trial and error.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, this is not like an airflow or airfoil or a propeller. It's literally just two spinning cylinders. That's it.
Yeah.
Like,
so if you go to about 10 minutes and 20 seconds, that's where we'll get like him actually starting the final flights.
Yeah, wow, it spins. I guess the forward motion. Oh, it's got a forward-facing prop to pull it forward. Yeah, because it's like which direction is the low-pressure area, and it's defined by the forward travel. Oh, God. Oh, there we go. It can't hover, can it, Blunty?
No, it cannot hover, and also it doesn't seem very controllable. He's got like, I'm sure if he tuned it all out or spent a lot of time on this, once he figured this stuff out, then he would go farther. But it kind of just went one direction and up and down. He got a little bit of rotation and turn on it, but it didn't really want to behave like he wanted it to. But I thought this was a pretty cool concept. I've definitely never seen anything like this. So.
Yeah, maybe not that practical, but just like to say you did it.
Yeah.
It's pretty freaking slick. Yeah, Robin Duckett. In some ways, it's flying like a fixed wing in that it has a surface that's generating a low pressure area and a high pressure area and is thereby generating lift. But it's very different than an airfoil, obviously. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And weird. Did Peter Schrippel do this? People are saying in the chat that Peter Schrippel already did this once. Surely he did so. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know. If somebody's going to do it, he'd be on the list of people that...
How do you even spell his name? Peter Schrippel. Did he do a Magnus effect? Let's see. Oh, there you go. The KFC bucket airplane Magnus effect. He did it with an airplane and some KFC buckets. Right. It's pretty slick. But anyway, he's made a lot of things. What's he up to? 1.87 million subscribers. This just proves that if you want to get actually popular, you need to do more than FPV stuff. That's what I take from this.
That's definitely true.
580K views. 1 million views. I'm in the wrong line of work. Anyway. But I love FPV too much to quit. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right.
All right, let's move on. I'll talk to my therapist about that.
So let's check out a new drone-style human flight platform. No pilot's license required. Take a class and fly this future of transportation. Basically, it's like a big drone with a seat in it, sort of.
Yeah, but okay.
It's pretty interesting.
Seems fine.
Yeah. It's only 343 pounds. It's 13 and a half feet by 13 and a half feet by 5 feet tall. But it's only about 340 pounds. It carries right now a 200-pound payload, about 25 miles on the U.S. version or 40 on the international version. It's classed as an ultralight, so you don't need a license. You just need to take a class. There's no real restrictions on you.
And it's classed as an ultralight, so you don't need licensing or anything.
Yeah, and they're talking about this is going to be, they're aiming for the price of an average SUV somewhere in there is what they said. So $30,000 to $50,000 is typically what what that would be, which is actually somewhat reasonable. If somebody could buy this instead of a car, that would be pretty crazy, but I don't know that we're in that world yet.
Is it actually a good idea? Is it safe? Is it...
Redtail FPV says they had one of those at EAA. It didn't fly. There were 4 flights, I believe, at AirVenture.
I guess if you're comparing it to an ultralight, the safety question is sort of framed a little differently. I mean, ultralights are less safe than cars. Maybe that's not true statistically. I don't know, per mile flown. Because cars obviously are operating on the road where there's a bunch of other idiots, trying to kill you. But let's just say that the failure modes of an ultralight can be more dramatic than cars. So saying, oh, well, you could lose a motor, or you could lose a prop, and this thing would crash. Well, I guess an ultralight, some of them also have dramatic failure modes. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to see it flying.
Seems pretty cool. And yeah, they're basically saying that they're ready to, they're going to be starting selling them real soon. Basically, they're asking people to reach out. They've got a bunch of testing going on. So
yeah, this is the first one of these that I know of that is actually, assuming they follow through, that is actually going to be selling to the public. I've seen a lot of concepts of human carrying multi-rotor devices, but nothing that was actually for sale to the public like this. I can't think of another one.
Also can land in freshwater, which is pretty cool too. Just another little feature.
I don't want to get out in freshwater though.
62 miles 62 miles an hour for the US one. I guess there's probably a limit on ultralights in some. I couldn't find exact specs, but they had to like limit the battery power and like the flight time and like a bunch of stuff for the ultralight rules, I think, in the US. But yeah, the international one will be over 80 miles an hour, over 40 minutes of flight time. Pretty crazy. Charges, can charge in on 240 volt. It can take 250 amp connections on 240 for charging in 30 minutes. So it can charge basically the same time it takes to fly it.
It's pretty freaking cool. I will say, Blackfly, I would love to fly. Bring one of these to my house and let me fly it around my yard.
Yeah,
okay?
Fly one over.
Fly it over to my house. I will totally give this a shot. This sounds super cool. Right? I mean, what could go wrong?
Only a lot. Still need them.
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. For the land of the free, there sure are a bunch of rules over here. Yeah, just such low-hanging fruit. Oh, my God, there are any laws at all. We have no freedoms. Like, there's just... Anyway, sorry, Blunty. That's not got nothing to do with the stream. Well, good. Blackfly. Let me make a video about your product. I want to fly your drone.
Yeah, I'm down too. So
Borks don't need insurance. It's an ultralight. Just get in and fly. Yeah. Anyway.
Definitely, yeah. That seems.
Don't need insurance.
We'll see where that ends up.
Yeah. Alrighty. Next up, the Slackline. Ladies, get ready for some hot Slackline action. Tell us about it, Blunty.
So I watched this channel, How Not to Slackline, or How Not to Highline. They got pretty popular on YouTube in the last few months for like, they blew up with a couple different algorithm videos, and I've been watching them since then. And they were basically, they're new to FPV, and they basically do brake tests and stuff. So they'll like pull a webbing and then put a carabiner on it and then just pull the carabiner until it breaks and check the peak force and do testing on different devices for people. They do all kinds of them for climbing and different kind of slacklining and highlining stuff. So anyway, they were testing FPV, and in this video, they're learning about it. So they were kind of testing to see if it would break the webbing on these lines. So if it was like safe to fly them around.
If the FPV drone would do it.
Yes. And so spoiler
that's nice.
There's no, only the drone was injured in the making
of
this
yeah.
video.
I mean, if you fly drones, you probably could have guessed how this was going to go. Although I will always be up for some slow-mo drone carnage.
Yes, but it is very cool to see them like learning about this stuff, and they kind of talk about the hobby and stuff. And then I put another like just an Instagram clip. Obviously, it's Instagram on a desktop, so it's not the best, but of the actual world record highline attempt that this was kind of about. And this all came about because the guy brought his FPV drone to the world record highline attempt. This was 2,130 meter highline.
Well, I would love to play it, but I can't seem to see how to turn off the audio.
Oh, I think you got to play and then turn.
No, I don't see any audio off. Hang on, I'm going to mute you, Blunty. We'll play it, we'll look at it, but they can't hear you. Okay. Let's see here. Got some FPV at this highline attempt. Okay. Yeah, there you go. All right, Blunty, you're back.
Cool. Yeah, I just thought it was a pretty neat little project. It's nice to see it in more hobbies and stuff showing up on a channel that I watch. So.
Nice. Yeah, really exciting. I watched a channel called, this is not part of the news, but I watched a channel called Throttle House, and they do car reviews. And I saw they had an FPV pilot in one of their recent videos. I was like, oh, trying out the FPV. Oh, thank you to everybody pointing out I can mute the tab in Chrome. It's too late now, but I just wanted to shush you, Blunty, is the truth. It's good to see FPV branching out into other things. It's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. All right.
Alrighty.
Community Spotlight.
Actually, Blunty, before we... I'm going to shush you again. No. Before we do that, let me get a couple of these super chats out of the way, and then we will go on and we'll finish up. Thank you, Isaac Mitchell, for $5. The only news I want to see. Thank you, Drone Dome FPV for $1.49, and thank you, Bryce Gibson, for $10 for staying true to your heart. Quality, not quantity. I do quantity too. What are you talking about? But thank you guys for your super chats. All right, Blunty, community spotlight. What do we got?
All right, so Busheezy over in the Discord made this cool little tool here. So we've seen before the DJI SRT files. You know, they have all the subtitle files with your bitrate and stuff. And I know we've seen like spreadsheet tools and different ways to get that data out. So I thought this was a pretty neat little way to do that. If you just want to visualize and check your data out, do it right there. So,
that's cute. So it's visualizing, basically doing what RC Shim did. He had a custom like Python script that imported it, converted it to CSV, and imported it into Excel. But instead, we're going to do it with this script, which will generate the chart for us. That's really slick.
Yeah, we need to just throw it in there and you kind of see like, oh, how was my latency over the flight? You know.
Yeah. Bitrate was good. Now what we need, okay, great. Thank you for your open source project. Now let me tell you what I want from you. We need the ability to upload more than one and like overlay them. Right?
Oh yeah, true.
That would be slick.
If there's like a correlation or something, maybe, yeah. Yeah,
who knows? And then the other thing we would need, and if you're going to do that, you would also probably need the ability to slide them left and right and sync them. And then the other thing that I wish existed was a tool that would take the SRT file and very easily let you slice out certain columns. So, for example, if I want to put a subtitle on a video and I just want to show the bitrate, well, that's not easy to do. And is there a tool that'll do that already? It's not. I'm sure, you know, if I was an editor in Emacs, it'd be easy to do, but I'm not. So, you know, as long as Busheezy, get on it. Give me your work for free.
And then thanks for that cool tool.
And thanks for that too. No, that's really slick. You've shown your weakness, which is that you have a skill. Now I must have it all. Alrighty. Next up, let's talk about this ZTAG live HD racing system. Well, now we say HD racing, but ZTAG is the laser tag dogfighting system for DJI. Well, not just DJI, but lots of anything. But now they're working on, what are they working on, Blunty?
All right, so they are working on essentially a system to communicate between, you know, like, hey, I've got all these goggle sets and I need to get the digital video out of them and then get it over to a router and then get that router out to the internet so that we can get that streaming out to wherever we need to stream it out to. This is kind of a demo example of how the setup might work. There's a bunch of different ways you could do it. But yeah, that's the idea now. So there is a name for the project. It's called OcuCat, and it'll basically be available for anyone to use like this base system. And then from there, basically ZTAG will be building on top of that to do the live drone racing piece of that stuff. So, but it'll be available under FPV out DigiView as well. So.
Yeah, that's really slick. This is something that, you know, could theoretically be done now that DigiView is a thing and you can get USB video out. You could have like a bunch of different HDMI capture cards capturing into a computer, but it's so tedious and expensive. HDMI capture cards are at least $100 each. These days, maybe more. And then take it from me, I have right now, I used to use USB capture cards, and the problem is that the USB bus can only handle so much data. And so I ended up going with a PCI Express card with 4 HDMI ins. It was like I'm not kidding, it was like $800. And now I have 4 HDMI inputs I can use. Not on a laptop, not in the field. And so this is a really exciting solution.
And a lot of that stuff doesn't behave sometimes, and you've got to figure out how to make it work with the video you're putting into it and the right resolution, and it's all a thing, you know. And so hopefully the goal will be that this will be taking that thing and pulling it into an easier way to do. So, like I said, that's OcuCat, and then eventually that'll be more fleshed out. We'll talk about it again, I think, when it's totally out as a full project, but it's exciting to see this. I think it'll be cool to see, you know, pilots racing live with all full HD video.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Of course, DJI racing is pathetic and terrible and has too much latency, and no one should do it. But I mean, if you are dumb enough to try, then it'll be really nice to see this.
That was
I'm being sarcastic.
The sarcasm sign, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, folks in the chat, I know you can edit an SRT file in Notepad. The problem is that there are, one entry per frame, basically, which is, however many frames per second. It's look. You guys trying to be clever. I've been. Here's what an SRT file looks like. Now, you tell me how I could easily extract just the delay parameter, right? Okay, that's one line. I mean, yeah, okay, maybe with a search and replace you could figure, and a regular expression you could figure it out. But it would be cool if you just had a tool that could do it. How many lines are there? 919 lines for this short little file. So yeah, that's why I want someone to do it automatically. Oh, just use a regular expression. Oh yeah. No. Where's the... I know there's an XKCD about this. Oh well, I'm not gonna find it in time. So, yeah, regular expressions just create more problems. What is it? What's the joke that if you have 5 problems in a regular expression, now you have 6 problems? I don't know. Oh, I could just make a little script. Yeah, I could do. No, I couldn't, because I don't know how to write a Perl script or whatever. Anyway, all right, let's let it go.
Michael D is a $5 super chat. Says, have you ever thought about posting your live cast as a podcast? If you already do this, what is the podcast name? That is available through the Patreon if you sign up for Joshua Bardwell's Patreon for $2 a month or more if you choose to do that. Yeah. You can get that sent to your Patreon feed and then sign up for that podcast.
Yeah, Patreon has the ability to upload audio files and then you can subscribe to them in your podcast reader. And it's one of the very, very few, like most of the stuff I do, I just give it away. I don't charge for it. But it's one of the very few things I make for patrons only. But if you're a patron, you don't have to watch this live on YouTube. You can just get it as a podcast. Anyway, so.
All right.
All right. Moving on. We got one topic left. We're coming up on the end we actually passed the end of an hour. Let's I'll tell you what, let's do, Blunty. Let's show the video. I'm going to assume that Mr. Steele is not going to copy strike me. Let's show the video, and then this is where it all started.
This is much better than ludicrous mode. So like Tracer has a couple different modes. And I've been flying on ludicrous mode, which is 1 watt, but it gives you a little bit less latency. And this I can like fuck up 30 times and figure it out because it's so low latency. I don't know if you're watching.
All right. So can we clarify what he actually said there before we get into it?
Yeah, because he basically misspeaks, but if you listen to like the bulk of the conversation, and he also says a little more, I think, in the rest of the video. He basically says that if you put it up to 1 watt, you get more power and you get more range, but something happens to latency. And then he says at one point, it actually is half the latency if you go lower power. In comments, he told somebody to go to 100 milliwatts. So yeah, basically just lower power.
So the first thing I wanted to do is make sure that, because we've been getting questions, you and you've been seeing them on the Discord, I've been getting them in my inbox, and I can also say that, that people are asking about it on Reddit. People think that Steele is saying that if you fly Tracer and you go to lower output power, you get lower latency. And the first thing I want to do is clarify, is that actually what he said, or did everybody just misunderstand him?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched it a few times now. If you continue to watch it through the video, he definitely says, like, pretty clearly it's half the latency.
Okay, so that doesn't... Well, let's start just by saying, does that make any freaking sense?
No, no.
No.
I don't think so. Like,
it doesn't.
Because there's no... Yeah, if you're locked into a mode, then you would need to somehow fall out of that locked mode to increase your latency.
Tracer is always
stuff would have to happen.
250 hertz. That's it.
Yeah.
So in theory, at lower output power, you could get increased packet corruption, right?
Yes.
And so in theory, you could feel not more latency, but maybe more sort of jittery skippiness. You could say, if he had said lower latency, lower power, it feels like there's more latency, I'd be like, yeah, I kind of get what you're getting at. But he said the opposite, and it doesn't make any freaking sense. Yes.
So I reached out this morning because I was tired of getting these messages. So
who'd you reach out to?
Mark Spatz, UAV Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he basically went and tested this on 25 watt, or 25 milliwatt, and then 1 watt modes. I clipped his response. He said we could use it for sure, but basically he said there was no difference. The results were the same. There's small changes, but end-to-end was identical. The packets were the same. So,
and we want to be clear here that Mark is testing end-to-end latency using a special tool that basically measures the signal coming out of the transmitter at the gimbal or whatever, and then measures the signal coming out of the receiver. So he's literally measuring end-to-end latency, which is exactly not just the packet rate or anything like that. It says there's no difference.
Yep. So that's, as far as we could tell, that's the case. It's always possible there's some kind of bug or some kind of firmware issue or whatever, but this is updated firmware, current tracer hardware. So we could tell you that regardless of what else was happening or what other bugs there were, that currently it is not the case that if you change power, you get a higher latency, at least in testing that we've seen. And there's no reason that we know from the way that it works that would happen.
So I hesitate. And I'm not just saying this to be nice, because if I'm not afraid to take the piss out of somebody if I feel like they deserve it. But Steele is an amazing pilot and an extremely experienced pilot who knows his gear very, very well. And I also don't think he's the kind of person who is just so full of himself that he'll just talk shit to sound smart. I think if he says, I felt this flight felt different, I believe him. And I think he's probably less susceptible to placebo effect than most people, again, because he flies his gear and refines his gear to such a high degree. I think the kindest thing we could say is that probably he felt something different, but that in general, no, there is no reason to believe that lowering the output power of Tracer will change its latency, either for the better or for the worse.
Yep. Pretty much. Yep.
Mr. Huggy says Steele has to set up highly tuned. His muscle memory is so tuned he could sense a 1 millisecond change. Maybe not 1 millisecond, but...
No, I'm pretty sure when they tested Shroud and stuff on that Linus Tech Tips video, they could not tell 1 millisecond from what I remember.
I mean, high-end gamers could tell some differences in latency more than an average person, but 1 millisecond is probably below the threshold. But I see what you're getting at. Nevertheless, something might have been different about Steele's quad that day. But in general, I think we can confidently say that changing Tracer's output power doesn't change its latency. And here's the thing. Tracer has pretty crap range at 25 milliwatts.
Yeah.
I know you don't have Tracer, but I can tell you the range is very bad at 25 milliwatts. It's not great at 100 milliwatts, and it's okay at a watt. But all these people out there who are like, oh, I'm going to reduce my output power, they're just going to be fail-safing all over the place. So don't do it.
So a bunch of people in chat, I just want to do a summary response. A bunch of people in chat are like, maybe it's defective. There's a bug. One is we kind of covered that, but also if you're making a video for 30,000 people, you've got to think about that shit. And that's my opinion. I feel like you should be considering when you make a statement hey, this is double the latency when you change the power. That's something to consider. That you're telling people, a lot of people, that information. Other people are getting information. They're going to change their tracer settings based on that information. You're telling people in comments, don't run ludicrous mode because so if you have a bug or you have an issue, then you have to think about those things and recognize those things. For me to think about those things and recognize those things, I guess is how I would put it. Because if you're going to make a statement in a video that like, hey, this is how Tracer works, then I'm going to respond to it as that's not how Tracer works from what we can tell.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not like, I appreciate that there's a balance between, hey, I'm just in a parking lot, I'm talking out my ass. And you know, I'm making an official recommendation. Like I've said stuff where I was just kind of like, yeah, I don't know, I'm just talking to somebody, and then you know, if it turns out to be wrong, I've had to do a correction. But a lot of people seem to have, and the thing is, people, and I get this too. So you know, I don't have a high ground here, but people take what he says so seriously that they're out there and they're such big fans of his. They're like, no, Steele says it's, and it's like, well. Whoa, dial it down.
Right. Yeah.
One IFPV this is a good idea. One IFPV says the area where Steele was flying is an office park with tech companies. Could there be interference? I have heard people who fly Tracer say that in areas with a lot of 2.4 gigahertz interference, like Wi-Fi, that they feel like they've noticed maybe lower link quality or micro fail-safes. Again, this is not scientifically verifiable, but there are some people who say that it's more susceptible to that. Maybe Steele turned his output power down to 25 milliwatts, and he was in an area where there was less interference, so it felt better than it normally does for him. Although, again,
so
going from...
Like a correlation, not causation sort of thing.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Something else was going on, and he did feel it. Although going from 1 watt to 25 milliwatts is such a big difference in power, it's hard to imagine. Yeah, it's hard to imagine that getting better in any way. Anyway, if you have Tracer, fly at 25 milliwatts if you want. Hey, it's your quad. There is no technical reason that anyone can come up with why Tracer would have better latency at 25 milliwatts. Mark Spatz tested it in a lab. It didn't change the latency at all. Our understanding of the way it works says there shouldn't be any difference.
People are talking about heat, but all that's going to do is reduce output power. And so that's just going to mean you're going to get closer to the original output power. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think heat's going to like lower the quality of the link as far as I understand the way it works. Yeah.
And Tracer should be able to run at 1 watt. If it runs at 1 watt, it should be able to run at 1 watt. It's not like a video transmitter that ramps down. Have I ever had a failsafe on Tracer set over 100 milliwatt? N3 Frame. I have not failsafed Tracer. I have, however, been flying Tracer at ludicrous mode and had a low RSSI warning, or maybe it was an LQ warning, I don't remember what, when I still had video. For what it's worth. I mean, most people are not going to fail-safe Tracer at 1 watt. Lots of people are going to fail-safe Tracer at 25 milliwatts, though. I mean, I feel comfortable saying that. Anyway, there we go.
All right. I think that
that's going to do it. Great. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's going to wrap it up for the FPV news this week. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the videos that come out. We'll be back at 6 p.m. next Tuesday with more FPV news. Thank you so much, Blunty.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joshua. As always, please go email news@fpvknowitall.com. If you've got some news that we haven't covered, let us know. And also, go down, make sure you subscribe to this channel, give a like to this channel, put a comment on this channel. Anything you can do to up the interactions helps with the algorithm, and we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, that's going to do it. Everybody have a good night, and we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Yep. Thanks a lot.